Pour yourself a cold one.
Let's drink them, huh?
And listen to Ross Tucker break down the top college prospects on another tasty edition of The College Draft.
Yeah, it's Daddy Soda time here on the College Draft Podcast presented by DraftKings. No, if you're watching on YouTube, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL, I am not in the witness protection program. I don't need to blink twice for you to save me. This is just the lighting in my hotel room in Los Angeles. I'll be on the sideline tonight for Westwood One. Kurt Warner will be in the booth. He's an excellent listen, by the way, for the Rams and the Cardinals. Really looking forward to it. My last NFL stadium to check off the list. So should be fun. Speaking of NFL, we're going to get in a little bit to some of the recent All-Star games that I saw our guy Emory Hunt tweeting about over the weekend. You know, the things that the practices that have been going on, some of the games, College Gridiron Showcase, Hula Bowl, Tropical Bowl, Dream Bowl. We're going to get to the guys that he's interested in those games, the guys that stood out to him there. But I really wanted to start with, since we're in the playoffs, I wanted to start with the lessons that we learned or should take away, I feel like, from a scouting perspective moving forward based on what we are seeing in the postseason. I think that's really important. Like, you have to always remember, what are we doing here? And I should say, in terms of what are we doing here, I'm at Ross Tucker NFL on social media. We are at Ross Tucker Pod, all the shows. Of course, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL is how you can always watch this show or any of our shows. Emory Hunt is my co-host. I'm a huge fan of him for so many reasons. You got to check him out on Twitter at FBallGamePlan, Football Game Plan on YouTube. And then, of course, it's time, guys. I mean, if you haven't, it's time. I get it every year. It's Emory's Draft Guide. It's the Football Game Plan Draft Guide, footballgameplan.com/2022 Draft Guide. Highly encourage you to sign up and get that. When does that usually come out, Emory?
Usually comes out either right before the combine or during the combine. It's usually around that time because the film is usually done. The film will be graded before the combine starts. That's my thing. So I'm not influenced by the workouts, but so the draft guy usually follows that, right away. So somewhere around the first week of March.
Awesome. I think maybe, Emory, one of the best ways to go about this would be to maybe just go game by game and any scouting lessons that you would take away from it. I guess for the Bengals and the Raiders, I think I underestimated or undervalued, Emory, the value of the chemistry that Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase had. I didn't really have a strong opinion on who they should take. I had some issues with Penei Sewell, so I was not a big they need to take Penei Sewell guy necessarily. But I'm not sure I put enough stock in just how valuable it is that those guys have such great chemistry.
Yeah, and that's the thing that, one thing that one of my sayings, usually one is size is not a skill, but if that was 1A, 1B would be, can you score or can you take the ball away? And so when you look at someone like Jamar Chase, he can put the ball in the paint. And you look at that offense, okay, we got a quarterback and we want to surround him with great weapons. And you're right, that chemistry is something that you can't overlook because that is something that you don't have to worry about coaching up or teaching if you're the staff of the Bengals. That's something that's already there. Chase just has to get caught up on what you want him to do from a playbook perspective. So that's a key element in all of this. And that's another reason why, and this is a scouting thing too, as much as people clown Matt Millen, I actually liked what he tried to do because if you go back in those days, you draft Joey Harrington, right? Now, whether he was right on that pick or wrong, that's here nor there. But let's say, okay, I drafted a quarterback. I got to make sure this pick is the right pick. So let me get the top wide receivers coming out in each of those draft classes, Roy Williams, Charles Rogers, Mike Williams. I'm going to give him every opportunity to be successful. I'm going to give him a dynamic tailback in Kevin Jones. I'm going to give him every chance to prove me right. And if not, the next quarterback can step in and have all of these weapons. Now, granted, because of off the field stuff, things didn't work out for these wide receivers collectively, but the idea was great. That's why I love what they did for Joe Burrow, getting him another dynamic talent that he has familiarity with, and it just pushes everyone else into another role. T. Higgins and also Tyler Boyd. So now you have legit 3 number ones out there at wide receiver, and you're going to ask someone's third best corner to cover your 1B or 1C at wide receiver. It's a tough matchup, which is why they're having so much success.
That was my other takeaway was, I think line play is vitally important, and the Bengals are benefiting from that right now because of how well Hendrickson and Ogunjobi played and have played, and they're showing line play matters. But man, when you have skill like the Bengals have, Emory, that's tough. I mean, that is really tough because they want you want to double chase, but that if you're singling up Boyd and Uzama and Higgins, you got problems. I mean, there is something to be said for having an abundance of talent at the skill positions.
Absolutely. And if you go, and I tweeted this out during the Celebration Bowl with Jackson State, their mantra all season long was their defense has been outstanding. No one has scored over 20 points on that defense once. There was one team that scored over 20 points, but because they were able to, they have 2 outstanding man-to-man corners. So you're able to man across the board against anybody. Yes, it's going to be hard as hell to complete passes. They could do that. If you look at that from an offensive perspective, good luck trying to man up. There's no who are you going to roll coverage to, because now you one-on-one against guys that could beat one-on-one coverage with a quarterback that doesn't mind throwing to the cover receiver. So all of that works itself into the game plan of, man, this is a really tough team to defend, not because we don't have good players, because the matchups and how those players are built, it just makes it so difficult on game day to really match. You really have to hope that your guys can make a play. And if you're out there and your defensive game plan is 75% hope, you already lost.
Yeah, the next game for me, Emory, the Bills and the Patriots, because I was there in Orchard Park for that one. I've got 2 takeaways from this one I wanted to throw at you. One is, I feel like we miss on these guys a lot, and a lot of the times these guys don't end up working out. But Josh Allen is like the poster child for the height, weight, speed, arm strength guy, high upside, and why you take those guys and give them a chance. I mean, Emory, his completion percentage in college was terrible. Even as a rookie, and even into his second year, I wasn't really sure if he was ever going to get there. He is incredible, and it's almost like blows your mind away that they took, teams took Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold instead of him. It's like, in hindsight, obviously, it's hard to imagine or see how that's possible.
Well, and look at that draft as a whole. The last 2 quarterbacks taken in the first round are arguably the 2 best quarterbacks out that class. Well, they are. It's not even arguably. Lamar Jackson was 32nd. He already has an MVP, and Josh Allen is right there in terms of pushing to get toward an MVP, but definitely is a very good player. And it shows you what the old mindset was, classic drop back passer, versus what the new mindset is, guys who can move the sticks, make plays. Give me the playmakers. Those guys, the Baker Mayfields, the Sam Darnolds, those are more the lines of the old way the NFL used to think, and in some cases want to think. But this new age group of Allen and Lamar Jackson is, man, can I make it an 11-on-11 game? Can I change the math on how you defend us? Can these guys make plays consistently when things are stacked up against them? That's the element that a lot of people scouting wise misevaluate. And we'll talk about another quarterback like that in Jalen Hurts in a few minutes. But when you have those guys like that, and you are coupled with, and granted, both of those quarterbacks, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, went to staffs that bought in on their skill set, and hella high water, we're sticking with them. Think about how Lamar Jackson looked in his first playoff game. Think about how Josh Allen looked in their first playoff game. There were calls to bench Lamar Jackson. I don't know if there was calls to bench Josh Allen, but he didn't look good against the Houston Texans. And next thing you know, these guys are growing because of that confidence. And you're a former player like I am, Ross. There's nothing more when you know the coaches have confidence in you and your ability to get the job done. Because now you're not questioning whether or not you're able to play this game, or you're not looking to the sideline and wonder if somebody else coming in for you. When they instill that confidence in you, you now can work through your mistakes and grow and enhance your assets. And that's what we're seeing from Josh Allen. Because you're right, the first 2 years we're like, man, they took this guy in the first round based off his track record of not having that success. But now they rode the wave, and now he's starting to stabilize a little bit, and now you can start to build. And that's what has happened, especially at that position.
So then the other takeaway from that game, I guess, was just speed. I mean, there's not a substitute for it. We saw it in the national championship game. But Emory, I mean, the Patriots looked so slow, and the Bills looked like they were flying around.
Yeah, it's funny, man. The speed is something that you can't coach. You either have it or you don't. And when you do have it across the board, I was surprised at how fast those guys were in those weather conditions. Because you know how it is, Ross, to try to open up your stride on a cold night like that. Those hamstrings are shot, but it shows you how explosive and dynamic those guys are. And when you know where you're going, that's the advantage the offense has. They could play fast all the time. Defensively, you're all reactionary. And it really exposed the lack of explosiveness the Patriots had at the second level and at the the back end of their defense, which is another big reason why they got exposed, especially on defense too. The Bills defense, that's back seven. You talk about the linebackers can run. The secondary are versatile and can run. So speed definitely kills on both sides of the ball.
Moving on to the Sunday games. And before I do that, I do want to make sure you guys are all covered, especially if you're somewhere where the weather can get bad with your battery. So make sure you go to AutoZone. It's America's #1 battery destination because they've got proven tough Duralast batteries. Nobody else does. Their batteries start at just $79.99. So you can get a new battery without breaking your wallet. The key for me, since I'm a guy whose battery died last year, they've got free battery testing and charging. So if you're driving by an AutoZone anytime soon, why not get your battery tested and give it a charge? See where it's at, give it a charge so you're good there. I mean, why not? The proof is in the pudding. Next time you're in need of battery help or to get your battery ready for harsh winter weather, start at AutoZone, America's #1 battery destination. Get in the zone, AutoZone. All right, Emory, the Eagles-Bucks game. I'm not sure I have that many takeaways. I do have a takeaway. I reject the game-to-game State of the Union on certain people's performances. The same people that were predicting the Eagles to win the game and were saying Jalen Hurts is a franchise quarterback at 12:45. By 2:45, they were saying the Eagles need to find somebody else. I mean, how are you going to go? I feel like I'm you, Emory. How are you going to go from in 2 hours from the Eagles are going to win and he's a franchise quarterback to 2 hours later, they need to get a new guy? I mean, that drives me crazy. That is bad scouting.
That is horrible scouting, Ross. You go from this guy's a franchise quarterback to putting Gardner Minshew in. Like, how many more games do you have to watch of Minshew not being good to realize he's not good, right? And it's not even a knock on Minshew. It's the fact that it's bad scouting. Scouting, you're supposed to let things play out. Case in point, my Carson Wentz scouting report. I got flamed for that in 2016. Fast forward to now. everything I said in that scouting report was dead on. And now with Jalen Hurts, you look at where he was coming out of Alabama to what he was able to do when he got subbed in after he got benched for Tua, to where he went to in Oklahoma to take over that starting job year one in the spring, had to learn the playbook to put up. If it wasn't for Joe Burrow going straight nuts that 2019 season, Jalen Hurts is your Heisman Trophy winner because he finished second in the voting, and he had a ridiculous year that was as good as Burrow's. If it was in a normal year, his stats would have been ridiculous. Burrow was just on a whole nother world. So this is a very good player that has shown you over the course of his time, and we talked about this with Josh Allen, who's an anomaly here because over his track record, he hadn't gotten better, and he just started to get better in Buffalo. But Hurts has shown you every year he has gotten better, and his traits that are significant for the position that he plays is that he's even keel. He doesn't make the same mistake twice. He's working hard to get better, everywhere, every stop of the football life of his. And so that's something that you can't coach. That's an innate. How many times you hear coaches say, "Oh, this guy's not motivated," but you get a guy that's motivated, that wants to get better, that takes coaching, takes hard coaching, and has shown in his history that he has improved on things that people say he needs to work on. This game is, to me, is exciting for a coach or a scout because wait, he's trekking in the right direction. So I agree with you. It's not only game to game where it hurts in certain quarterbacks. It's pass to pass. Like, so Justin Herbert could throw the ball away, and it's how he threw the ball away. There's nobody there. Hurts could throw the same pass thrown away. You got to put that where somebody could get it. Like, wait a minute, man. Is it incomplete or is it a bad, accurate pass? And so they're ignoring the fact that the Eagles weren't supposed to do anything this year, and they made the playoffs. That tells you something about this guy. And so you build around him. And to me, watching him play and seeing that he was still staying in the fight, didn't go into the tank despite his struggles all throughout that game, tells you his mental makeup. And you watch that game and you say, man, the Eagles probably could add another big receiver. They could probably find so much help on defense, and this team could be right back in there with a better chance to win. So I'm with you, man. I hate especially with quarterbacks, you hate the game to game, State of the Union, stand on a hill on top of a soapbox and say this guy can or cannot play, because all I know is just the raw facts. His second year, he had his team in the playoffs. I don't care who they played. He got the team in the playoffs. And in Justin Herbert's second year with Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Jared Cook, Austin Eckler, an excellent receiver out of the backfield, and offense catered around his skill set, didn't make the playoffs. So there's something there to be built on with Hurts.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't feel any differently about him. He's not the first quarterback that had a crappy first playoff game. I mean, how many? We've seen a million quarterbacks have a crappy first playoff game. It's so stupid to judge a guy based on one game. It drives me absolutely nuts. Trying to think of, I'll tell you what my takeaway is from the next game, Emory, the Cowboys and the Niners. That's a little bit of a line play one, and the importance of the depth with the guys like Arden Key and DJ Jones making plays for the Niners. I don't know if it's a culture thing or it's the players they bring onto the roster, but the lack of discipline for the Cowboys is appalling. Appalling. I mean, Mike McCarthy and Dak are complaining about the refs after the game. Emory, they were all good calls. I mean, it was defensive holding. It was illegal hands to the face. It was a false start. They were legitimate calls.
This is why I probably couldn't be a head coach. Out of all the 89 penalties that they had yesterday, the one that would have had me lose my mind on the sideline was CeeDee Lamb's not getting set. Like, bro, hustle to the line of scrimmage. Like, what are we doing? I probably would have lost it on the Randy Gregory holding, because, bro, that had nothing to do with the play. Like, you just decided today, I'm gonna do what I want to do. I'm gonna grab this offensive lineman and I'm gonna hog tie him to the ground. Like, what are we doing? You're right. Discipline will win or lose you games. And the other scouting takeaway I got from that one was the importance of versatility in today's game and how in the scouting process you got to value guys that can do more than one thing. Deebo Samuel, you watch what he does. He can return kicks, he can run routes, he's not afraid to go over the middle of the field as a receiver. Oh, by the way, he's probably going to be your best tailback on the team as well. So you think about this, and I love throwing back references because you were right there with me, Ross. We're about the same age, and you get it. You watch how Deebo Samuel is utilized, and you're like, damn, I wish Rocket Ishmael played in today's game. People forget at Notre Dame, they used to use him in the backfield like you saw Deebo Samuel. He was getting I formation carries at Notre Dame. And he also was a wide receiver that can go down the field. And so he goes to the NFL and they try to make him, instead of making him Rocket Ishmael, they want to make him be Art Monk, run these routes. Same with Desmond Howard. Michigan constantly utilizes this dude on end arounds, putting the ball in his hands and making it a broken field situation like a kickoff or a punt return, which is where he excelled tremendously at in Michigan. But they wanted to make him, be Gary Clark, like just run routes and get open. Like, man, use these guys' athletic ability. So I'm always saying guys back then were ahead of their time. You look at someone like Deebo Samuel, had he played back then, he would have suffered the same fate as those guys being misused. So if you have a talent like a Deebo Samuel coming out of college and you notice the different skill sets and how teams are utilizing him, find ways to get him the ball. And that's how, to me, that's how you maximize your roster at the NFL level. College, you have 120 guys, so you could do different. You could have one guy for specific things. NFL, you have half that roster and 46 on game day. So you got to look at that and say, you know what? How can I get the most out this 46? Deebo Samuel shows you can maximize your 46 and you could do it well.
Yeah, Deebo Samuel is a great scouting lesson in terms of using guys in different ways, in terms of the body type for a receiver. Everybody wants the bigger guys or the faster guys. You can have a running back body type like him and be successful. I don't know that there's much to say about the Chiefs and the Steelers other than Patrick Mahomes is an alien and Andy Reid is amazing. I will say that overcoming the odds, rewriting the playbook, delivering under pressure, the MVPs of small business lead their teams to victory all year long. Visa is proud to provide playmakers everywhere with more tools to help grow their business and help them achieve even greater success. Because the more people we can empower, the more we all win. Visa, a network working for everyone. All right, Emory. So what were some of the all-star games that I saw you tweeting about over the weekend that maybe people aren't as familiar with, and who stood out to you?
Yeah, you talk about one thing about the Chiefs and Steelers game, and it's basically all for the Chiefs. It's look at Tyreek Hill and look at Jerick McKinnon. McKinnon was an option quarterback at Georgia Southern. Hill came into Oklahoma State as a running back before being used as a receiver. But that's what we talk about Deebo Samuel, maximizing opportunities to put the ball in your hands. And so going back to the College Gridiron Showcase, that was the one that was in Fort Worth, Texas. And there's a big wide receiver that caught my attention, and D. Anderson of Alabama A&M. He went to LSU, transferred from LSU to Oklahoma State, then transferred from there and went to Alabama A&M. He was going to enter the draft last year, but decided, you know what, I got to put something more on tape. So he went to Alabama A&M and had a fantastic season. He's someone that's your height, weight, speed guy. He's about 6'4", 6'5", about 215 that can go up top and play above the rim game, but also has that underrated speed to run past you. And, he showed in those one-on-one drills at the Gridiron Showcase that that's someone that can win one-on-one. I know those routes are kind of heavily slanted toward the offense winning in those drills, but D. Anderson shows you someone that can really be a nice asset to an offense. Then the Tropical Bowl and the Hula Bowl were on the same weekend and on the same day. The Hula Bowl first, obviously I'm going to talk about, Levi Lewis, the quarterback from Louisiana. He measured in. Now, this is the fun part because on the UL roster, I think he's 5'11", 195, 5'10", but he measured in at 5'8.5", close to 5'9", 186. But you see a live arm from this dude. Now, I always say this about him. He's a true point guard at the position. Just, point and shoot type passer. Like, let's distribute the football to the open guy. He threw 2 laser beams over the middle of the field to the tight end. One was dropped by that same tight end, came right back to him on the next play and got the ball inside the 1-yard line. So he's someone that can make the throws. And it was great to hear Ron Jaworski, a former NFL quarterback, talk glowingly about someone like Levi Lewis being the first one in the film room when he got in there, and they just spent hours talking about football. He was asking a lot of questions. And so he said, during the week, he was one of the more impressive ones in throwing the ball. And running back Quay Holmes out of East Tennessee State, he is someone that entered the draft early, but he graduated, so that's why he's playing in this all-star game. He reminds me a lot of Arian Foster. Has a lot of that within his game, just a smooth, one-cut, then get downhill type guy that you don't think is running fast, but you never really catch him from behind. He had over like 1,700 yards this past season for East Tennessee State. They had a fantastic year. So you look at someone that is not being talked about right now, but he has the quote unquote size that people look for at the position. He can catch the ball out of the backfield and has very good vision, patience, and footwork to get the job done.
Was there anybody else? Did the Tropical Bowl or Dream Bowl take place, Emory?
Yeah, they did. The Dream Bowl had to expedite their week. They were supposed to play today on Martin Luther King Day, but because of the snowstorm that's taking place in Virginia and on this I-95 corridor, they had to push their game up to Saturday night, and they played. And one guy, J.W. Jones, defensive end for Central Arkansas, is someone that is one of these tremendous pass rushers that could play across the defensive line. He's about 6'4", 260, but he's more of an edge guy. I love the long arms and the length and his ability to close. And you go back and watch their game during the pandemic. They're one of a few FCS teams that played in the fall of 2020. They had a really good game against UAB and really was disruptive there up front. So I'm excited to see how he progresses through the process. And at the Tropical Bowl, Ivy League guys, J.J. Howland, the tight end, 6'6". He measured in at 6'6", about 255. One of those seam stretch guys that can really be a tight end too. In your offense, an inline guy that can get down the seam, make those seam catches or those easy outlet catches and get up the field. But I think he's a very good inline blocker as well. You better be a blocker at Yale because they do a fantastic job of running the football.
You need to check out this man on social media at FBall Game Plan on Twitter, Football Game Plan on YouTube, and of course, footballgameplan.com/2022 draft guide. It is excellent. Of course, I know a lot of you already listen to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, which is daily. We'll have the Even Money Betting Podcast tomorrow, the Fantasy Feast Podcast Wednesday. If you like the draft and scouting and Emory stuff, you would like Andrew Brandt's Business of Sports podcast as well. Love those of you that quote tweet that you like the show. That's a great way to get a retweet. If you quote how much you love Emory or love the show, either Emory will do it or I'll do it, or certainly at Ross Tucker Pod will do it because we love those of you guys that do that. Other than that, the keg is kicked. We're all tapped out.
Thanks for listening to the College Draft Podcast. Make sure to also subscribe to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Fantasy Feast, Even Money, and the Business of Sports. All available at Apple Podcasts, rosstucker.com, or wherever podcasts can be found.
A lot of times on the show, I mentioned DraftKings. Here's what you need to know. You got to be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. By the way, if what I was talking about included a deposit bonus, doesn't always, sometimes it does. Deposit bonus requires 25 times playthrough, and deposit bonuses are paid out in site credit.